Good
Selamat
evening.
malam semuanya.
To
Untuk memulai
start,
ini kita cuma punya
our
waktu sangat
time is
pendek
very
soalnya mungkin juga
limited, and
kalau
if
sempet
we
ntar
can
bisa
have
dilempar
time,
ke
we
floor.
can have
Cuman kalau enggak,
Q&A. But
kita punya
otherwise,
6
we have
orang di sini.
6
Tambah
people
saya
here, and
Farid
I'm
dari Ruang Rupa. Dari
Farid
Ruang Rupa juga
from
ada Daniela atau
Ruangrupa,
Kunil
and
biasanya
also
dipanggil.
Daniela, also from Ruangrupa.
Cuman karena ada
And because there are
sekian
so
banyak
many
orang di
people
sini,
here, we
cuma
only have
punya
1
waktu 1
hour,
jam. Jadi
so
akhirnya kita mesti
we will have
mengatur
to
pembicaraannya supaya seru.
organize
Mungkin
the
antara
discussions
kita dulu.
in such a way. Perhaps we
Di sini
focus
ada
on
Serrum,
the discussion
KUNCI,
on the stage first. So we
Erni,
have
bukan sebagai
KUNCI,
institusi tapi sebagai individual yang punya inisiatif.
Erni,
Kelas Pagi
and we have
Papua,
Kelas
Lab
Pagi
Tanya,
Papua,
dan
Lab Tanya, and
Mas Agus
also
juga sebagai
Agus
seniman
as an
yang punya
artist with
konsentrasi banyak
focus
pada
on
dunia
education.
pendidikan.
So we're from
Kami dari
Ruangrupa.
Ruang Rupa
We
bikin panel ini
established this
sebenarnya
panel
untuk menggarisbawahi
to
bahwa
underline
fokus paling
the
besar yang akan
focus
kami
for
sorot buat
documenta 15,
15 adalah
which will be
pendidikan
education in its
artian yang luas,
widest
bukan hanya
sense. So not
pendidikan
only
formal.
formal education,
Cuman ngomong
but
kalau
if we
ngomong
talk
informal
about
juga berarti
informal
membedakan
education,
antara formal dan informal, jadi kita perluas.
it
Dan
is
bukan
like
berarti apa yang
making a
kita
distinction
sorot
between
adalah
formal
sesuatu
and
yang sekolah,
informal. So,
misalnya gitu.
but we're actually talking about the
Sekolah informal atau formal,
general
cuman
education in general
seperti nanti
sense.
ada lewat
We will
perkenalan
have a
singkat,
brief introductions
orang-orang yang ada di panggung
to
ini,
everyone on the stage, and
akan kelihatan
you will see the
warna-warni
nuances
pengertian pendidikan, semoga.
and how we
Dengan begitu,
understand or we perceive education. So I invite
paling satu orang
everyone
menit
here
kita
to
ngobrol
introduce
lebih
themselves.
banyak. Mau mulai dari yang
So start
paling
with
senior.
the senior one, Bang Agus.
Nama saya Agus Nur Amal.
Agus Nur Amal.
Nama pertunjukan PM
And
Toh.
my
Itu
stage
saja.
name is PM Toh. Good night, and I'm Adi Wibowo. I represent Lab Tanya. So just an introduction about Lab Tanya. So we established Lab Tanya in 215,
dari latar belakang saya dan juga beberapa teman
my friends and I, we're
latar belakang
architects,
atau berpendidikan
or we have
arsitektur,
education in architecture, but we think that in the practice of architecture, there are many
persoalan dan
practices
punya gap yang
with a
cukup besar
lot of
terhadap
gap
transformasi yang bisa dibuat di realita.
about what we can
Nah, lewat
do
Lab Tanya
in
kami
the
mencoba
reality. So through
merumuskan
Lab Tanya,
macam metode
we
riset dan
develop
eksperimen
different
yang harapannya
methodologies
juga
and
itu jadi alat
experiments,
untuk
so
selain
not only
produksi
to produce
pengetahuan,
knowledge,
juga
but
alat untuk
also
membuat
to
transformasi sosial lewat
transform, to
proses
make social
produksi
transformation
pengetahuan tadi.
through knowledge production.
Terima kasih.
I'm Donal.
gua Donal,
I'm
mewakili
here
Kelas
on
Pagi
behalf of
Papua.
Kelas Pagi Papua. I think that's enough. Good evening. My name is Erni. I'm from the district of Bangalaut, Central Sulawesi. And in my village, I developed a mobile library. So it's actually a basket from my tribe. So we have this basket filled with books. We go from villages to villages, or otherwise we have a living room, and we open that living room for the public to come and read books. Good evening. I'm Gatari from KUNCI Cultural Studies. So KUNCI initiated a school that we call a laboratory that studies or learns about how people actually learn. Good evening, I'm Angga on behalf of Serrum. Serrum is we do art pedagogy, and we also have laboratories, education laboratories about methods, education methods. We use a variety of educational tools and facilities. So the
Gambar yang di belakang
pictures
sebenarnya kita cuma minta
at the back
per
is
orang di
actually
sini
we have asked
memilih
the
satu gambar
people here
yang
on the
mewakili,
stage
yang
to
paling
choose
menurut
a
mereka paling
picture
mewakili,
that
mungkin tidak menjelaskan,
most
cuman paling
represent
mewakili
what
apa yang
they
mereka
do
lakukan.
on the field.
Mungkin kalau
So
dari
from me,
saya
I
sekarang
start
mulai dari yang
from
pelit
the
informasi tadi.
information.
Kayak
So
Mas Agus,
you
PM Toh,
or PM
kenapa
Toh. So
banyak yang
perhaps
nggak tahu
not a lot
mungkin
of people here know
latar
about
belakang
your
Mas Agus,
background and
dan PM Toh itu
PM
gimana
Toh.
tuh, kenapa ada
How
nama
did
panggung
you
ada 2 dan hubungannya
come
Jakarta.
to the
Maksudnya kayak gimana awalnya abang bisa
how did you decide to
kuliahnya
call
di mana,
yourself PM
pendidikannya,
Toh?
gitu,
Where
bisa
did you
diceritain, Bang?
learn? Where
Baik.
did you study?
Saya ini
Well,
lulus
I graduated
sarjana sebagai
as an
aktor,
actor
dan nilai saya
with a B plus
sebagai aktor.
as my mark was a B plus as an actor.
Namun
But
ketika
after I
selesai
finished
kuliah, saya berpikir,
studying,
masa
I
saya jadi pemain
think
sinetron
I thought,
tampang saya tidak
how can I
mencukupi.
become a film
Mau
star?
main
I'm
film
not good
waktu
looking
tahun
enough. And in the
80-an
80s,
itu film Indonesia belum tentu
there were
setahun
not a
itu
lot of
20.
films
Dan dari
being made
2020
in
itu juga
Indonesia.
belum
Perhaps
tentu
just
saya dapat
in 1 year
peringatan.
there would be
Lalu saya
2
pikir saya pulang
films at
kampung,
most.
saya teringat di kampung
And
saya
then I
ada
thought,
seorang master
I
storytelling,
remember in my village there
namanya
was a
Tengku
good
Haji Adenan
storyteller.
PM Toh.
So I
Saya
went
putuskan pulang kampung,
to
saya
my
belajar dari
village, went back to
beliau
my village. I learned
bagaimana
from him, from the
bercerita,
master
tapi
storyteller
kemudian
who
dengan
was
ilmu
called
yang saya punyai,
Toh.
saya kembangkan
So I learned
cerita
how to
tersebut,
be a storyteller, and then I
gaya
developed
cerita menjadi gaya
my own
cerita saya
style
sendiri
of
yang kemudian
storytelling,
disebut PM Toh.
which I then call
Guru saya yang
PM
dijuluki
Toh.
PM Toh. PM
So
Toh itu
PM
adalah
Toh is
nama
actually
bus
the name
Trans
of a
Sumatera.
bus, a public bus,
Tahun 20-an
intercities
sudah ada
in
bus
Sumatra,
itu milik lokal,
and
tapi
it
kemudian
was
diambil alih oleh
it was an
Belanda.
old
Perusahaan
company.
motor transport
So it was
Ondernemen
under name
Hasan.
Hasan.
Nah, Tengku
And
Adenan
Tengku
PM Toh, guru
PM
saya itu
Toh, my
ketika dia
teacher,
bercerita suka
he
meniru suara
liked
klakson bus
he
PM
liked
Toh yang
to
kemudian dikenal dengan polalet,
copy,
gitu
or
ya.
he liked to mimic
Telolet, telolet.
the beeping
saya
of the bus.
Belajar sama beliau,
So I learned
mengadopsi
from him,
nama PM
and I
Toh
also
juga.
adopted the name of that
Jadilah
bus
bentuk
company,
gaya
PM Toh,
berteater
and
saya
I
sendiri
developed
yang
my
di
own
kemudian hari
theater
saya lebih banyak
style.
sebetulnya
So
kepada teater
I'm
terapan
more
istilah
into
saya ya,
the
di mana saya menerapkan
application,
teater saya
a theater,
untuk berbagai
theatrical application,
kepentingan.
where I use my theater
Entah itu
ability,
kepentingan
theatrical ability for
empowerment,
different interests, for
sosialisasi berbagai macam
for
isu,
information dissemination,
kepentingan,
for empowerment, for
pendidikan,
education,
kepentingan,
and also
termasuk juga
about
betapa pentingnya untuk
how
anak-anak
important it
pagi-pagi
is
sudah
for
gosok
children
gigi,
to
gitu.
brush their teeth in the
Begitu
morning.
komentar dari saya.
Kalau kelas
And then next,
selanjutnya
I
mungkin
would
saya
also
juga
like
pengen
to
nanya,
ask,
karena lagi-lagi
and
karena pelit informasi tadi,
kelas pagi
kelas pagi
Papua,
Papua itu ceritanya gimana bisa
what's
ada
the
kelas pagi
story
di Papua, karena kelas pagi
of
kan
kelas pagi
mulainya
Papua,
kan kita
because
tahu
you know,
dari Jakarta.
well, it was an
Jadinya
accident.
kecelakaan. Jadi
So one day I
suatu hari
went
gua
back
pulang
to
ke
my
kampung gua,
village, and I
terus
didn't
gua
know
nggak
what to
ngapain
do.
gitu. Terus
So
akhirnya gua
I
lulusan kelas pagi Jakarta.
graduated
Ya udah,
from
jadi,
kelas pagi
kelas pagi
Jakarta,
bukan kayak,
and kelas
lu
pagi
diri
didn't
enggak,
say,
kayak
oh,
gitu sih. Mereka
go to
modelnya,
your village and establish
siapa
your
yang
on
sanggup
kelas pagi.
mendirikan,
Well, no,
siapa
but
yang
they
dia
said
bertanggung
if
jawab,
you want
itu harus memulai
to
dari
start, you
inisiatif.
have to start.
Jadi pas gua
And
pulang
then
ke
when
sana,
I
gua
came
nggak
back
ada kerjaan,
from my
satu-satunya
village,
cara untuk
I
membuat
didn't
gua
know
waras adalah
I
gua
didn't have anything to do,
Papua.
so
Minta
I
izin sama pendiri Anton Ismail
established this
di
kelas
situ.
pagi Papua. I
Nah, itu
asked
gua mulai
the
tuh,
permission of the kelas pagi
ngembangin,
Jakarta, and then
sekolah
I
komunitas
started to
sekolah
develop
komunitas
the
di sana.
community school there. And
Kita
our learning
metode
method
belajarnya juga
is,
nggak
well,
harus
just
secara di sana.
adapting
Jadi gua
to the
adjust lagi
culture, the
dengan
local
cara,
culture. I
mindset mereka.
adjust
Jadi nggak
the
boleh
method to
terlalu lama
their
di dalam
mindset,
kelas,
so we
harus
don't
kita
stay in the
jalan-jalan
room for
keluar,
long.
kayak gitu.
We take a
Nah,
walk
habis itu
outside,
terus,
and I
gua
also
juga
have
harus
to think
mikirin
about
bagaimana sih
how
ngembangin ini
to
akhirnya
develop this
ke
further.
bawah ini,
Like
kayak
in
kalau
we
kita
in
di
kelas
tuh
pagi,
istilahnya
we
harus ada
have
susu yang
to have
menghidupi komunitas
something
ini. Jadi
that
kayak ekonomi kreatif gitu. Jadi gua akhirnya anak-anak
that
ini yang
maintain
sudah setahun
this
pertama itu kalau mereka udah lulus,
community. So it's
mereka
it's
bisa
a little
bekerja,
bit like
dan
a
ini yang nanti
creative
biaya
economy. So they
operasionalnya
go
kita
they graduate, they go to
buat
work,
bagi
and then
guru yang harus
we can
dibayar.
have
Jadinya tuh sekolah
we can have money. So the school must be free, but we must pay the teachers. So we start to develop this, and then with the support of Kelas Pagi Jakarta, now we have Kelas Pagi in 5 cities, in Jakarta, in Jogja, in Kediri, and in Papua, and in Cianjur. And the latest one is in Cianjur, so that's why we developed it. So we've been to several places, and using you have a regeneration. Well, to make sure that it is sustainable, we make sure that the practice is sustainable. So that's why we have to have this company to make sure that this effort is sustainable. So do you still focus on photography, or do you expand to other fields? Well, we focus on visual art. So my background is in film. So starting this year, we started to expand into films. And there's also other possibilities to go to other fields, because in creative economy that we are developing, we have to have a mothership, and which is the company, and we have to develop this, and so we do not limit ourselves to visual art. We work with the local government. We make merchandise. So in the district, we start to have a support. We started to get work from the districts.
Oke, makasih. Supaya nggak
So
batangan terus yang ngomong.
now kunci.
Kunci. Soalnya setiap apa namanya?
So these initiatives, especially the organizations, we ask them to choose one program. For example, Serrum, they have a lot of programs. We ask them to focus on one program. For kunci, we know you have the sekolah salah didik, or improper education. So how do you get to that idea, improper education? Well, the idea of improper education is, it started off from the practice that we've been doing for 16 years at the time. So after Kunci was established as a group and a research group that did a lot of research about art, about education, and we have always been working in art, and we work also alongside activism practices. We think that there would be a time when we had to reflect again about what we have been doing for 17 years. Although at the time, when I got to Kunci at the time, Kunci was 15 years old, I think, and we used this improper education school as a laboratory that studies about how people learn. So we believe that the core of all the practices that we have been doing for 17 years or 16 to 17 years, we have to have a pause, stop for a while, and rethink again. And we use the method to reflect that. We use the pedagogy method, and we use the school as a long-term program that we have, that Kunci has to maintain as one of the core activities. Whoa, that's quite a long time. That's a long explanation. What about the improper? Well, the beginning was not improper name. Well, in the beginning we called it invisible economy. So it's a school that tries to see or to explore the economic values of that has remained invisible. So all the precarious work in creative economy. But after a year of process, for a year, we tried to explore further what kind of economy that we're talking about. And then it turns out that what we're actually working on is not economy itself, but the way to understand what the economic value is. So
berangkat dari ide
that's why we
pendidikan.
think about
Dan
the
kami melihat
idea
bahwa
of education.
semua
And
latar
the
belakang yang sangat
personal
personal adalah
education
setiap anggota
background
kunci
is that
berada di
every
kunci itu
KUNCI
atas
member
dasar
is
kritiknya
in
terhadap
KUNCI
pendidikan,
because
entah
of
itu
a
gagal
critic
atau
on
misalnya
education,
kesel atau
whether
misalnya kayak
through a
merasa
failed
pesimis
education
dengan
or
pendidikan.
pessimistic
Maka
about the
dari itu
education.
kami merasa
So we
bahwa
think
berangkat
that
dari
starting
latar
from
belakang
that
personal yang memiliki
personal
pertanyaan besar
background with
terhadap
a
pendidikan
big
itu
question
penting
about
untuk
education,
digunakan sebagai cara
that is
untuk
important
mengetahui
for us
nilai-nilai
to
ekonomi yang tidak
actually
terlihat itu
explore
tadi
about the
gitu.
invisible economy.
Jadi
So
kayak sudah ada
you've already had interesting methods from all our speakers here, but I would like to know what indicates what is the indication, what can you see from all the classes that you have done, that you have made, the impact to the community or everyone who has been involved in the school. Perhaps Serrum can say a little bit about that. What you can see here, that's actually the documentation of a remedial. That's one of the programs that we have. We invite students, informal education, informal schooling. And one of the members of Serrum is actually a teacher in a formal school, and she has a anxiety about art education in school. So there's in the school, people only know Basuki Abdullah as a modern artist in Indonesia. So we then extend this education with this program, remedial program. So invite the students, and we have a network of teachers, because most of us, once we graduate from university, we become teachers. So we invite the students, and then they learn about the contemporary art history and using the art ecosystem in Jakarta as the source, especially from good school. So the resource persons are from ruangrupa and also from Serrum to talk about what is video art, what is art installation, what is participatory art, and the output of which is that projects, students' projects about the works, about the knowledge that they didn't get from their formal schooling. So they then made a common project. So about filling the gap, Ernie, you're from the island areas. So the island is in the border between Central Sulawesi and the North Maluku. We have an access, but we do not have libraries. We do not have access to reading material. For example, in 2003, only in 2003, I got an access to good literature, and before that, I couldn't get anything. Because it was only after I got accepted into a university in Makassar in South Sulawesi that I get access to reading materials. So I did basic things, but why do I do these basic things? It's because of the personal situations. In 2016, for example, I did a project, an art residence for teens. We had a conflict, religious conflict, one tribe, and there are with different religions. And I made a residence program where they learned from masters, from art masters, and the response was very difficult. And I think it was because there was no access to good literature. When I was in elementary school, the only books that I read was only the books for schools. The only novels the only novels that I could read at the time was Freddy D.S., which is a soft porn novels. So I filled the gap.
kelihatan. Udah berapa tahun tadi?
Jadi itu
the
pustaka yang
mobile
aku
library
sama
that
yang
I
bikin itu
made
sama
with
istri
my
saya itu
mother
dari
starting
2016.
from
Jadi
2016.
merespon dari
So
situasi
that was
yang
in
pernah
response
terjadi
to
sampai
the
kita
situation
umumkan saja
when
untuk
we
pertunjukan kesenian yang
when
anak-anak
we
residensi ini
invited
dihalangi
people
oleh
to
pemerintah desanya, nggak mau
perform
diumumkan di desa.
the
Jadi
local
respon-respon,
government
jadi ini saya yang tadi yang
banned
saya
us.
asumsikan
So
mungkin
all
mereka
of these
tidak
responses,
terbuka,
I think,
belum
because they
memiliki
were not
pikiran yang
open
terbuka untuk
to
hal-hal
other
kegiatan-kegiatan
possibilities,
seperti ini. Dan
to such
satu-satunya jalan
ideas.
untuk
So
bahan
one
bacaan
thing that
pikiran
we
mereka
can do
harus
is
ada
that
perpustakaan
we
desa
have
di
to
situ.
give them
Makanya,
access to
koleksi
good
buku saya di
literature.
Makassar
So
tuh
we
ada
have
300
three.
eksemplar.
I
Saya
have
kirim ke kampung
300
saya,
books
dibantu
in
sama
Makassar, and
beberapa
I
teman di
sent this
Makassar. Kemudian kita buka perpustakaan di
to
ruang
my
tamu saya.
village, and I
Jadi,
opened a
mulainya
library
begitu.
in my
Kemudian,
living room.
beruntung karena saya juga
And
punya banyak
because I have a
teman
lot
di
of
luar
friends
Jawa, mereka
outside
juga
of
membantu
outside
di
of
luar
Sulawesi,
Sulawesi.
in Java,
Maksudnya
I
di Pulau
mean.
Jawa.
So my friends in
Teman-teman
Java,
saya di
they
Pulau Jawa,
helped
mereka
me
membantu
to
untuk menggalang
collect
buku-buku.
books.
Jadi
So now
sekarang kita
we
punya
have
buku-buku kita sudah
1,000
1.000
books
lebih
for
untuk warga desa.
the people in my
Dan
village.
itu menjadi
And
referensi bacaan
that
buat desa-desa lain
people
juga.
from
Dan
other
karena
villages
hanya
also
di
come
kampung
to my
saya,
village
jadi desa-desa
because
yang
it
datang ke
only
kampung saya
exists
untuk
in my
pinjam
village.
baca.
So
Jadi yang
they
mereka pinjam itu bukanlah buku-buku yang
they
mungkin seperti
borrow
bacaan-bacaan.
books.
Mereka pinjam khotbah Jumat, buku-buku khotbah Jumat, ibu-ibu cari
They
resep masakan,
the mothers
jadi
fi-
kita merespon juga
try to
apa
find
minat
recipe
mereka,
books. So
apa
we
yang mereka
always
ingin baca.
respond to what they need.
By the way, kalau ada yang mau punya pertanyaan ke masing-masing,
If you want to
langsung
ask
aja ya.
others questions,
Ya.
go ahead.
Gue cuma mau nambahin.
No, I would like
waktu
to
pertama
just
bangun
add
ini,
when I first
terus tiba-tiba ada
develop
satu hal yang
this,
menarik adalah begitu
there was something
eh,
interesting because in Indonesia, in
ini pulau banyak
an
gitu kan ya.
archipelago,
Terus kita
and
seperti Banggai, gue pernah
I've
ke
been
Banggai
to
gitu,
Bangkai,
kalau
so I know. So sometimes
kita
we have
kadang-kadang
a
punya prasangka kayak
thing,
satu
a prejudice
daerah
that oh,
lu kesini
you
dong,
go
lu kesana,
here and
lu
you
kesini.
go
Nah,
there. And then
begitu
when we
kelas
had
pagi Papua
we
ini,
established this
kita diajar
kelas pagi
bercerita,
Papua,
bernaratif
we
gitu, lewat Instagram
teach
dengan
people how to
anak-anak itu
tell
mulai
stories.
muncul bahwa mereka udah mikirnya
We
tuh udah
found
Nusantara.
out that the
Gitu.
kids,
Anak-anak
they
itu dengan
actually have a
sendirinya dan
perspective
cerita
about
mereka juga, oh ternyata
Indonesia.
di Papua tuh nggak semua orang telanjang
And
ya, enggak kali lu lihat aja nanti gitu.
so
Teman-teman
kelas
dari kelas
pagi
pagi
Jakarta,
udah
when they
begitu
came
datang
to
pertukaran
kelas pagi
pengajar
Papua,
gitu,
we had this
nah, di
exchange
situ
of
gua
teachers.
mulai ngeliat
We
tuh,
see, oh, we have
ini
to
harus dikembangin
introduce
lagi ke
this
tempat
to
lain,
other
keren banget
places
kalau ini.
to
Jadi
make
kita
sure
kayak,
that
punya,
so if
kalau
we
misalnya
if
kita
we
ngomong bahwa
talk about the
Nusantara,
national
itu jadinya
perspective
dengan
with this
bahasa visual ini
visual
cara yang
language,
efektif
this is
menurut
a
gua. Jadi kayak
very
ada
effective
prasangka gitu,
language.
orang di
So we
sini-sini.
have these
Ya, kita
prejudices,
perkecil
and we start
melalui
to
melalui foto atau
to
melalui video itu
reduce
yang gua rasa
these
cukup efektif
prejudices
dan itu
through visuals,
sangat
through
membuat
videos,
anak-anak
through
juga bukan hanya
Instagrams,
itu, mereka
to
ngerasa,
pictures.
"Wih,
So
anak kita punya
the
saudara loh di sana."
our
Gitu. Jadi ini
students
yang
start to
membuat
think, oh, we
motivasinya
actually
untuk
have
membangun
a
kelas pagi terus-menerus gitu.
family members,
Itu
a
yang impact yang gua
colleagues
rasain banget
out
gitu.
there somewhere, and we can see.
Iya.
Nambahin boleh. Jadi terkait
So in
prasangka
relation to
gitu, kalau
prejudice,
yang paling nggak
when
kalau
we
kami
reflect
refleksikan dalam
on
perjalanan
our
praktek yang
art
kami
practices
lakukan
in the
dalam
last
beberapa
few
tahun terakhir
years,
tuh,
we have
ada
a
prasangka kuat
strong
yang justru itu
perspective,
masalah dalam
which
konteks
is a
pendidikan atau tumbuh kembang
which is,
pengetahuan, yaitu mengasumsikan masyarakat bodoh.
which actually
Jadi,
started from
ada
the
bayangan besar
education
masyarakat bodoh,
process, the
masyarakat
formal
nggak
education
mungkin
process.
melakukan
They have
proses
this
memproduksi
idea that
pengetahuan,
people are
sehingga kemudian
stupid
dari
and they
asumsi
have
itulah
to
kemudian
learn,
struktur
they have to be
bangunan
given
pedagogi pendidikan
information, and
dibuat
that
gitu
is
kan. Saya pikir itu
how
justru masalahnya
the
gitu kan,
education
asumsi tadi.
structure
Yang salah satu
has been
mungkin
created.
paling nggak
So
dua
I
poin
think
penyebabnya kalau menurut
based on
tahunya
our
tadi gitu.
own
Yang pertama karena pengetahuan itu pengetahuan yang asli yang diinjeksi
experience,
gitu,
I
kan, di luar
think this is
diinjeksi.
because
Terus kemudian alat
this
ukurnya
is
juga alat ukurnya
external
kemudian
education
mengandaikan
injected
pengetahuan
into the
diinjeksi tadi
community,
akan menghasilkan
and
sesuatu yang dibayangkan
because
oleh
this
pengetahuan
has
diinjek
been
tadi.
injected
Sehingga
from
kemudian
outside,
yang terjadi dalam proses
in the
belajar adalah yang
learning
nggak terjadi proses
process,
belajar yang
the
kemudian
learning
muncul dari
does not
bawah merespon persoalan
appear,
yang
does
ada
not
di sekitarnya dan
emerge,
kemudian itu
and as
sebagai
a
pengetahuan memang
knowledge,
lahir, tumbuh, berkembang dan kemudian
as a
menumbuh
knowledge
gitu
it
lah.
should
Jadi ini
be
yang aku pikir atau paling
embodied,
nggak kami pikir
and
mendorong
this
kami
is
mencoba
why
merespon berbagai
we
macam cara
respond
yang bisa
to
kami
this,
buat gitu
and we
dalam
try to
misal
make
ada satu
different
program kami
programs.
yang
We have
Kota
a
Tanpa
program
Sampah
called
itu tahun 2012 dibuat,
City Without
mencoba
Rubbish,
membuat
City Without
satu
Garbage,
proses belajar
and we
dengan
try
mengandaikan
to
satu
imagine a
keadaan di mana lewat
condition,
proses pengandian inilah semua
and
produksi
through
produksi
this
pengetahuan terjadi. Misalnya ngomong sampah,
imagining
kenapa nggak
process,
membayangkan
all all this knowledge is produced. We imagine, for example, living without rubbish bins, and then we then through this imagining process, we have a lot of reflections and
dua-duanya
in this
pembelajar gitu,
process,
karena
both parties
imajinasi
are
tadi mendorong kami
learners,
juga
and
mencoba
because
untuk
through these
terlibat paling tidak dalam
imaginations,
proses
we are
fasilitasi.
also
Proses
involved,
fasilitasi bagaimana yang kemudian membuat para
especially in
peserta
our
belajar tadi
um,
bisa ikutan terlibat dalam
teaching,
proses pengandian
how to
tersebut
make
gitu.
sure
Yang
that
menarik ya
everyone is involved
begitu
and is
terjadi
engaged.
gitu artinya dalam
And
proses belajar
through
selama
this
2
learning
minggu
process,
atau 1 bulan dengan
2
pengandian
weeks
tersebut,
or 1 week,
jumlah sampah
the
berkurang 95%. Jadi
we
kalau
are
ditanya
able to
bagaimana
reduce the
ngukurnya,
garbage
ngukurnya pakai realita gitu, realitas
95%.
1:1 gitu aja gitu. Jadi
So
bukan belajar
it's
sebagai
not
satu
about
proses
learning
representasi,
as a
tapi
representational
belajar sebagai proses
process,
untuk
but
mengintervensi
it's
realitas
learning
gitu. Jadi
how
lewat
it's
proses
through
intervensi itulah
learning
kemudian
we
realitasnya
intervene,
berubah gitu.
we
Paling
make
nggak kita bisa melihat
interventions through
alternatif
learning,
yang lain dari satu
a
realita
real
gitu. Kalau tadi juga ngeliat di sini
life. So
perencanaan
we have a
kolektif tata
collective
kelola sampah.
learning
Ini proses yang
about
baru kami lakukan setelah 1 tahun
garbage
engage atau
management.
bermitra sama satu
So
komunitas warga
we
di
have
satu
been doing
kampung
this
skala 1 RW.
in our
Di situ kami
neighborhood.
mulai
We
masuk
try to
mencoba
intervene
intervensi
the
tumpukan sampah, gunungan
piled up
sampah yang ada
of
sekitar 14 titik gunungan
garbage
sampah
in
besar
14 points
sedang dan
in
besar
one
di satu RW tadi
neighborhood.
gitu. Nah,
And through this
lewat
planning
proses perencanaan
process,
kami tidak
we
membuat
develop
satu
a
metodologi proses perencanaan sebagai proses
method.
perencanaan yang umumnya
It's not
arsitek
like a planning
terlibat gitu,
process
tapi ini
like
proses
in
belajar gitu. Jadi
that we
yang
usually
kami
do
buat
in
ya proses
architecture.
belajar di mana
We are
si
doing a
warga yang jadi
learning
peserta
process where
belajar
the people
merespon
are trying to
realita
respond
tersebut dan
to the
kami sebagai
reality, and we
fasilitator
as
juga belajar. Dan
facilitators are
artinya dalam
learning
proses
too. So through
pembelajaran
this is
tadi
an
itu
organic
organik gitu dan sebenarnya
learning process.
melelahkan
It
sih,
is
melelahkan dalam
tiring
arti
because
karena kita
we don't
hampir nggak
have
punya struktur yang
a fixed
tetap dan
structure,
baku gitu.
because
Karena
in the
dalam prosesnya
process
begitu
we
direspon begini
see,
sebagai
oh okay,
fasil itu
that's a
merespon
response,
balik
and
gitu
then
dan
we respond
prosesnya
back.
jadi 2 arah gitu.
So it's a
Terus
two-way
kalau ngomong
dialogues,
hasil ya
and
hasilnya kalau diukur dalam realita
in
yang
the
terjadi paling
reality,
nggak dalam
through
3
the
bulan
3-month
proses belajar ini, kami
learning
nyebutnya proses
process,
belajar gitu,
we
ada
are
sekitar
able
6
to
titik
see
bakaran
that
sampah yang hilang
6
atau
piles
dari
of
14
garbage
6
have
gunung sampah itu hilang
disappeared
dan itu
from the
memaintain
14
hampir
piles of
1-2 tahun ke depan
garbage.
gitu. Jadi
Now we only
itu kami
have
coba mencoba
8.
mengukur bagaimana dalam
So
proses
if you
belajar apakah
ask
ada
us
realita yang
how we measure
tergantikan
this,
gitu atau realita yang kemudian
we can
teralihkan
actually
ke
measure it
alternatif
in
realita lainnya gitu.
reality, the
Itu mungkin
number
kalau
of
ditanya tadi coba ngukurnya pakai
existing
apa
garbage
buat
piles.
internal kami gitu dalam menyusun proses dan metodologinya.
Tes.
I would like to ask you further to kelas pagi Papua. You've mentioned about kelas pagi Papua
mengambil dari
using your personal experience being in Jakarta, being involved in kelas pagi Jakarta, and you would like to get to take kelas pagi Jakarta to Papua. I'm curious as to how you bring this, because this kelas pagi you focus on the product, you have a visual products. I would like to know how you in the kelas pagi Papua, how do you determine the perspective when you produce a final art, because you start from a experience in Java and it's so far from Jakarta to Papua.
Yang gue tangkap gini,
So
apapun
whatever the audiovisual product is, the connecting thread here is actually a narrative culture, and this is what we made into visuals. So whether it is videos or pictures or photographs or drawing, the connecting thread is the narrative culture, because in Papua we have a strong narrative culture because we tell stories, and that is very strong. So I think that's a chance for us to work in. So we don't, this is what we teach the kids. You have a story that you want to tell, you take a pictures, and that pictures tell stories. So we don't, so the method is quite simple. Does it answer your question? Yeah. I would like to ask questions too. So in our experience in the learning process, because this is a two-way learning process, we have a teacher, a facilitator, and the subject, the learners. It has been very difficult for us to imagine how we, the two parties, are learning together. The most difficult, the one that finds it most difficult is the facilitator. So how to help the
kreativitas, atau juga,
facilitators to be creative,
adaptif
to be
sama situasi
adaptive
sehingga
to the
kemudian,
situation,
bisa
to
direspon dengan
respond
suatu proses yang
to
kemudian
the
bisa
situation, to
memfasilitasi semua orang bisa
facilitate
belajar
the
bahasa Belanda. Itu
learning
yang paling
process.
rumit
I
dan
think that
menantang.
has been the
Dan
biggest
kadang-kadang tuh
challenge.
bikin
And
bikin
the
apa ya,
dilemma here
dilemanya itu
is
adalah apakah ini harus
whether
dibikin
we
satu
have to
struktur
have a
modul gitu.
structure,
Pada saat jadi struktur dan modul
but
sebenarnya
when we have a
jangan-jangan si
clear,
fasilitator
a
mulai
fixed
terjebak
module,
sama
then perhaps the
format-format
facilitators
yang mengikat gitu,
is
dan pada akhirnya dia
fixed
nggak jadi
to
adaptif gitu.
a
Nah, punya
method,
teman-teman ini punya
and then
pengalaman
it's
nggak
no
sih dalam
longer
situasi
adaptive.
situasi
Perhaps
tadi
do
gitu,
you
sehingga
have
bisa
any
sharing gitu dalam
experience
mengembangkan
in
metodologi,
developing
dan
your
terutama kalau aku
methods?
pikir
Because I
masyarakat
think
sih
the
relatif lebih
people are
terbuka gitu.
quite
Tapi pada saat
open,
kitanya
but
kemudian mau ikut
we as
fasilitasi, nah kerumitannya
facilitators,
justru di
I
kitanya
think
gitu, yang malah
this
kitanya malah
has been
tegang
the
sendiri dan
challenge.
terlalu percaya
Sometimes
sama
we
apa
are
yang kita
too
punya gitu,
anxious
sehingga
and
nggak
too
membiarkan prosesnya
tense,
jadi tumbuh
and
organik
then
gitu.
we don't let the process flow organically.
Tes. Sebenarnya
The question
pertanyaan itu tuh juga jadi salah satu
is also
permasalahan yang dihadapi sama
the one that we
sekolah
have
didik.
in
Mengingat,
improper education school,
kami tidak,
because we
kami
as
sebagai
KUNCI
juga
as
tidak naif
organization,
gitu,
we're
bahwa
not
KUNCI
naive
adalah
in
satu,
thinking that
lembaga
KUNCI
yang,
is
menemukan
the
sekolah-sekolah didik gitu.
organization
Sedangkan
that
ketika kita, kami berada
discovered
di
this
sekolah-sekolah
idea
didik
about
mencoba
improper
untuk
education,
membongkar
while
tentang,
we at the
nilai-nilai
improper
pendidikan
education
dan
school, we
membicarakan
try to
bahwa,
do
mencoba
away
untuk
with
menghilangkan
educational
hierarki pendidikan dengan
hierarchies and
menguji-cobakan
trying
salah
to
satu metode belajar
trial the
tanpa guru
learning
dan
method
murid.
without
Itu
teacher
ternyata
and
semakin muncul
students.
karena pertama kunci yang memiliki ruang, dan
KUNCI,
kedua kunci juga
the
yang
fact
memiliki
of that
dana.
KUNCI
Dan
is the
ketiga,
main
ada mistifikasi yang sangat
organization
melekat di kunci gitu, yang juga itu
emerge
jadi salah
because
satu
KUNCI is the one that has the
hal yang
funds,
membuat beberapa
and
murid
some of the
salah didik
students
juga
of the
datang, murid
some
salah didik,
some of
karena
the
semuanya juga jadi
students
murid salah
go
didik
to
gitu.
KUNCI because of
Terus,
KUNCI.
yang akhirnya
So
kami menemukan
we
di
have
tengah-tengah,
we
jadi
found a
sempat
way,
ada fase di mana
middle
sekolah
way,
salah didik,
because there has
semua
been
muridnya,
there was a
termasuk
phase
kunci,
when
itu
everyone
mengalami
in
kebingungan.
improper
Kami tidak
education,
tahu
including
bagaimana
KUNCI
cara,
itself,
karena
was
semua
confused.
20
So
orang
imagine
itu
20
bingung tentang
people
apa yang akan dilakukan dengan
were
salah didik
all
gitu.
confused
Karena ternyata
about what to do
kami
with
menyadari
the
itu
improper
terjadi di
education
fase
school,
pertama gitu.
because and we
Dan,
realized this in the first
kami
phase, and we
menghabiskan waktu
spent
sekitar
around 8
8
months
bulan,
learning
dengan mempelajari
about
bahasa isyarat, yang satu pun di antara kami
sign
tidak ada yang bisa pakai
language,
bahasa isyarat di
and
akhirnya
at
gitu.
the end of the day,
Jadi akhirnya
no
8
one
bulan itu kami selalu
are
bertemu
able to
dan
do
kami
this
selalu
sign
bingung, dan
language.
di akhirnya
So
kami juga nggak bisa
we
pakai bahasa
always
isyarat gitu.
met
akhirnya,
each other
di situ kami menyadari
intensively
bahwa,
for 8 months, and at the end of the day we
peran
couldn't do anything,
fasilitator ini
and
menjadi sangat
that's
penting.
when we realized
Bukan
the
berarti
importance
kunci
of
ketika
facilitators.
kunci ingin
So when
menghilangkan hierarki di dalamnya
when
dengan
KUNCI
tidak
tried to
mengambil peran,
do
tapi
away
justru dengan
with
menimbulkan
the
peran dan menggunakan peran itu
facilitators or
untuk
teachers,
mencoba
we
membagikan hierarki atau
we
membagikan kuasa
try
yang dimiliki oleh
to
kunci gitu. Yang
spread
akhirnya kami menemukan beberapa
the
cara seperti pembagian
authorities.
tugas
So there is a
moderator
task
atau
of
pembagian
moderators,
tugas menjadi
of
notulen, terus
note
masing-masing
takers,
orang
and
berhak untuk
everyone
menentukan
has the
di mana ingin belajar.
has
Karena
a say
ternyata
in
permasalahan
saying
ruang itu
has a
menjadi
say about where they want to
satu
learn,
poin
because
penting
there
di mana menciptakan
space of
hierarki
learning
itu gitu. Karena di ruang
actually
tentu
makes
ada banyak nilai-nilai kepemilikan. Oh ini punya kunci, bukunya kunci,
the
mejanya kunci atau apa gitu.
strengthens the
Dan itu
hierarchy,
mencoba kami,
because
oke,
this is
kita cabut
actually the
gitu,
room that belongs to
masing-masing orang
KUNCI,
berhak untuk
and this
menentukan
book
di mana.
belongs to KUNCI.
Lalu
So everyone
yang
has a
terakhir
say
adalah caranya
in
dengan diam. Jadi di
determining
awal, di
where
metode
to study,
pertama
and
itu
then
kami selalu
also
takut ketika
we
kelas itu
let
menjadi diam gitu. Jadi masing-masing
quietness,
dari kunci itu yang selalu
because
kayak mencoba
in the
melemparkan
beginning
pertanyaan
we
gitu.
were
Tapi
so
ternyata
afraid of
melemparkan banyak pertanyaan
quietness,
justru membuat
because
situasi itu
then
jadi sangat
everyone
bingung.
when
Dan akhirnya kami
there was a
memutuskan
quietness,
untuk yaudah
we
diam itu menjadi
ask
salah
questions,
satu cara untuk
and then we
mentransfer
decided,
pengetahuan
oh
itu
perhaps
gitu. Dan
silence is also a way
tidak dipungkiri
to
masing-masing orang
transfer
punya
knowledge, and
situasi sendiri.
everyone
Mereka
would be
bisa
able
menyampaikan atau
to
berpikir
think
tentang apa yang terjadi.
about what
Jadi
was
melihat
happening. So
keputusan
the
untuk menjadi
decision
diam
to
itu
let
sebagai
people
cara untuk
to let
berpikir,
silence
dan
be
nggak apa-apa waktu itu kami juga
was
sempat
okay.
mengalami diam
So
cukup lama, mungkin
we
10
had
menit
like
gitu.
a silence,
akhirnya kayak yaudah
a
deh
time
makan
of
dulu
silence
aja
for
gitu. Dan,
quite a long time, 10 minutes
maka dari
silence,
itu,
and then we say,
yang
oh okay,
timeline-nya itu
let's just eat
rencananya 1 tahun jadi
first,
molor gitu.
and
Tapi
then
kami melihat lagi
our
bahwa
timeline
itu adalah cara
was
untuk di awal-awal
expanded.
sebagai
I suppose
kelompok
that was
belajar untuk bisa menemukan
what we had to
ritme,
do in the beginning
belajar secara
before we
berkelompok.
find a rhythm for a learning process.
Sebenarnya Bang
Bang
punya
Agus, you
metode-metode
have your own
sendiri
methods.
pasti
For
kan.
example,
Misalnya Bang Agus
you
ngajar
teach
lokakarya
workshops to
untuk
teachers,
guru-guru,
Perhaps
Mungkin itu
that's
juga jadi
also
salah
one of
satu
the
strategi
strategies
sebagai fasilitator
for a
sebenarnya.
facilitator.
Kemudian menjadi guru
And you
pasca
were a
tsunami di
teacher
Aceh, sempat juga
after
kan Bang, bisa
the
diceritain
tsunami in
mungkin
Aceh. Can you
bisa
also talk
gimana
about that?
salah satu.
Ya,
Well, I
saya ini kan
learned,
bekerja dengan
I worked
benda-benda ya.
with objects,
Benda-benda yang
cheap
murah,
objects,
benda-benda yang ada di dapur,
kitchen
baskom,
utensils,
setrika,
buckets,
sepatu
used
bekas.
shoes.
Saya yang dari
So
tahun-tahun
I'll
sekarang
just
aja deh saya
tell you
ceritain dulu
about
kalau
what
sempat
I've
nanti
been
yang ke
doing in the
belakang.
last few years. In the last
Dalam
3
3 tahun
years,
belakangan ini saya
I've
banyak
taught
mengajarkan guru-guru
teachers
untuk membuat
to
alat
make
peraga. Entah biologi,
demonstration
entah sejarah,
tools,
entah
whether this is in
pelajaran
biology,
agama.
in religion. In biology,
Biologi
for
misalnya
example,
buat tubuh
make
manusia
a
begitu ya.
human body.
Nah, sekolah-sekolah
In
kita ini alat
schools,
peraganya kan
the
tergantung
demonstration
dari kiriman dari
tools
pemerintah
depend
pusat.
on what
begitu.
the central
Itu kalau di
government
studio, di
sends
laboratorium
them.
tiap sekolah itu biasa
Usually we have
alat
the
peraga yang berbentuk manusia, isi dalam manusia itu
torso,
udah
the
berdebu,
sculpture
udah ada yang
of a
copot
body.
jantungnya,
We
gitu
have a
dipakai.
very dusty
Saya lihat
sculpture.
rata-rata
This
di
is what
sekolah
I've
begitu
already
itu.
seen. So I go
Saya
to
datang ke
school,
sekolah,
I
saya
find
cari kardus, saya buat
cardboard,
patung
I
manusia,
make
lalu saya cari
a
sendal
sculpture
warna
of
merah,
a
saya
human
taruh di
body, and I
sininya
use
jadi paru-paru begitu.
flip-flop
Saya
to
cari
make
jam-jam bekas, saya
lungs,
gantung di
and I
sini jadi
use
jantung.
used clocks
Saya
to
cari
make
ceret
heart.
jadi
I use
lambung begitu. Bagi saya
pots
setiap benda
as
dengan
stomach.
teori
So I
asosiasi
think
bisa
every
menjadi
object
benda yang
within
lainnya.
association,
Nah, dengan membuat
we
alat
can
peraga
turn it into
sendiri,
another object.
kemudian
And by using
dimulailah
this
pelajaran biologi misalnya
demonstration
begitu.
tools, we start
Tapi
to make
rata-rata guru-guru memang suka memprotes guru-guru di
the object,
Indonesia.
the subject,
Kenapa mereka
and the
memprotes Pak
teachers
Agus? Masa ini
usually
ceret dibawa ke
protest.
depan
They
kelas,
ask, "Oh,
sendal
Pak Agus,
dibawa ke
why
depan
do you
kelas?"
take all these
Guru-guru
flip-flops
kita ini
and
membayangkan
pots and pans and
alat-alat peraga
cardboard
itu harus yang
to
mewah lah
the
begitu,
class?"
harus yang
Because
bagus.
the teachers
Sementara saya
always
menerangkan
had this
misalnya
idea that
darah merah cukup dengan plastik
these
berwarna merah.
demonstration tools
Di dalam
had
plastik
to be
berwarna
expensive.
merah ada
Blood,
plastik
for
berwarna
example, I say
putih,
blood
itu
can
darah
you can
putih.
use this
Nanti
red
datang kuman
red
putih
plastic
hitam,
as a
dimasukkan
red,
ke dalam
and then
plastik warna merah,
the germs
kemudian
you
ditelan
can
oleh plastik warna
imagine
merah,
you can use
kumannya
this
ditelan
black
ol-
plastic as the
ditelan
germs,
oleh
and then the
sel
white
darah
plastic
putih,
you can
begitu.
imagine this as the
Begitu
white blood
gampangnya
cells. So it is
menerangkan
very
segala
easy
sesuatu
actually
dengan
to
benda-benda
explain
yang
things
ada,
with
begitu.
the existing objects
Nah,
around you.
kemudian soal
And then
bumi,
the
karena
earth,
ada pelajaran
we
apa
have the
namanya sekarang ilmu
geographic
bumi ya, terutama soal gempa bumi.
study,
Itu
and
saya
I
buat
made this
apa
globe
namanya, bola bumi
using
dengan
buckets.
baskom yang ditimpa
So I have this
berlapis-lapis.
layers
Lapisan
of
pertama baskom warna
buckets.
biru, itu
The
lapisan
blue
bumi
basket
paling
is the
atas,
crust, and then
Lalu
within
di dalamnya ada
this
baskom
bucket we
lagi,
have
lapisan
another
kedua dari
basket,
bumi, di
another
dalamnya ada
bucket, and then
baskom lagi
another
yang
bucket
disatukan,
inside.
lapisan ketiga, sampai kemudian
And then we have the
ada botol aqua
water bottle that I
lebih
cut,
pendek begitu.
that I've cut
Karena
to
apa inti
to
bumi
explain
bagian
about the
dalam
core
itu terdiri dari
of
gas
the
cair untuk
earth,
mewakili
the liquid
zat cair
core
dalam bumi.
of the earth.
Lalu di dalam zat
then
cair itu ada inti bumi.
We have
Inti bumi itu
the,
gas padat ya, itu saya gunakan
and I
gas
use
mainan anak-anak itu ya. Di Blok M
the
ada
core
dijual. Terbayang kan? Gas mainan
of the
anak-anak.
earth. I use
Nah, saya bawa baskom
the
itu ke
toy
depan
as the
kelas, begitu,
core
gurunya
of the
geleng-geleng
earth.
kepala.
And
Buat
for
guru rupanya
I
memalukan
use this,
memainkan
I take this
baskom-baskom itu.
to front of the
Karena
class, but
yang
the
teringat
teachers
oleh
feel,
guru kan ini
this
kan
is
barang
too
untuk mencuci di
shameful,
kamar mandi,
because
jadi
the
kurang
teachers
pantas membawa
thought,
di depan kelas.
this is what we
Tapi
use
begitu saya terangkan
to
lapisan bumi pertama,
wash
lapisan bumi kedua,
dirty
di sini
things at
terjadi
home.
kalau
But then
ada
when I
lempengan
explain, okay,
bumi,
this is
begitu.
the
Kenapa lempengan
crust,
bumi ini bisa
and
bergerak?
why
Nanti kita buka
they can
selanjutnya lagi ada inti
move,
bumi
because we
yang-
have the core,
selalu ingin
the
meletus,
liquid
begitu.
core of the earth that would like to
itu
move
soal ala-ala
up.
peraga
So
dalam
this is
bidang
what
biologi, dalam
I
bidang
use as the
geologi,
demonstration tools is for
sejarah,
biology, geography, history,
juga masalah-masalah
conflict
konflik.
problems,
Kalau masalah
conflict
konflik,
issues.
biasanya
In
saya
conflict
mengajak
issues, I
anak-anak
usually
murid
ask
untuk membuat peta.
the students
Peta
to
yang
make a
cukup
map
besar,
as
sepanggung
big
ini
as
di
this
mana rumah
stage,
mereka,
and I
misalnya, kan.
ask them,
Lalu
where
di mana
is
masjid, di mana
where is your
gereja,
house, where is the
bisa
mosque,
seminggu
where
lah
is the
kegiatannya
church?
untuk
I
membuat,
can use a week
apa namanya,
to make this
peta
map,
bangunan begitu
a
ya.
whole
Lalu
week
di mana
to make this
terjadi
map, and then to
konfliknya.
map out where the conflicts are.
Untuk peta ini
I've
sudah
been
cukup
doing
lama saya
this
buat untuk
for
berbagai macam
quite a long
kepentingan.
time for a variety of reasons.
Itu kira-kira yang
So this
yang
is what I've been
kira-kira
doing
saya
in the
kerjakan.
last 3 years. Oh, very interesting. So
Jadi sebenarnya
teachers
guru harus
must be creative as well. The facilitators must be creative to think about ways to deliver things to the kids to make sure that what they deliver is remains interesting. Yes, it's very interesting what Mas Agus has told us about teachers. If you use buckets, they feel it's shameful. Yeah, exactly. Our experience of working with teachers, when we experiment when we do the experiments in maths and in art, in maths usually people think, oh, the teacher are killer teachers, the subject is boring and scary, and then we collaborated with math teachers how to distribute knowledge about maths to make sure that maths is a fun subject. So we combine it with art because it is we can combine art. So it is an interactive project. So for example, X is red and the Y is yellow, and then we have orange in combination of X and Y. So I think all subjects at school can be adapted using art. For sport, for example, for physical education or PE, we have the theory of PE and how to transfer this knowledge, sport theory, and then we have this collage. We make this collage. So I think art can be used as a media to convey these subjects. I would like to ask you to have a drink actually.
Minum kali. Tegang amat.
So have a drink.
Nil, minum gua habisin soalnya punya gua.
Nanti mau ke toilet jangan.
I would like to ask you,
tanya selanjutnya
when we
adalah
talk about art and its use, let's relate this to the localities, the global thing like documenta,
karena ada beberapa kayak
because Bang Agus,
kan udah
you've been to Jakarta Biennale, Kunci, you've been to documenta as well. Is there any use of that global events in your local practice, in your local initiative? Well, my question is how to make sure that that experience is useful. Say you are invited to Kassel for a period of time. Your library, you have no one in the library when you're in Kassel. So how to make sure that this global and local tension is useful? Can you expand the ecosystem from the village to the global level, for example? Well, I think what is important here, Serrum thinks, I think what is important here is the production and the distribution of knowledge. We had this experiment about in the formal schooling, usually the production of the distribution of knowledge is top down from the teachers to the students, and then the learning usually bottom up from teachers to the from the students to the teachers, but the practice it remains top down. So we have the experience of trying to find an equal distribution of knowledge. We did this for the first time in Jogja Biennale. We made a map. We did a mapping project to the city of Jogja. We met students in Malioboro, for example, and they want to learn about Japanese language, and then we met the workers in the palace, Jogja Palace. So that's who actually wanted to teach Javanese. But so we made these connections, but it was not in the Biennale itself. When you talked about modules, when Adi talked about modules, when we made modules, this didn't work. So we had this market knowledge, knowledge market. One of this was in Yokohama. So this was an open space. It was an open public space, and at the time, everyone would be able to write what they wanted to learn and what they wanted to share. So from this space, we were able to connect. We were able to make connections. Oh, this guy wanted to learn about this, and this guy wanted to share about this. So we then had this studio. So what happens is, what happened in the transaction of knowledge is actually a transaction of culture. How to drink tea in a Japanese way, for example, because this is a multicultural event. So we had a lot of artists in residence from a variety of countries, and we then had this exchange of knowledge from the public class. So this is what we can extend in a global scale.
Selanjutnya,
Perhaps anyone else would like to comment from KUNCI, for example? Well, if you ask me whether it is useful, everything would be useful.
Tapi tinggal jadi mungkin
But
lebih ke
perhaps
kalau
for
bagi pengalaman
KUNCI,
kunci sendiri itu jadi menimbulkan ada
this experience
layer
creates
permasalahan lain
an
dalam
awareness of a new
praktek
layer
sekolah
of a
di,
problem in
sekolah-sekolah didik
in
gitu.
our practice,
Karena
in our improper
sekolah-sekolah didik
education
dan kunci
school,
itu,
because here
adalah akan selalu terus
there will
saling
always
tarik-menarik
be
gitu. Dan
tensions,
selama ini
and
beberapa
the
sekolah-sekolah
improper
didik merupakan program
school,
kunci
improper
gitu.
education
Dan-
school is
dan
a
kunci yang menemukan sekolah-sekolah
program
didik.
of
Tapi,
KUNCI, and
ketika
KUNCI was the
ada-
founder of
misalnya,
this. But when
ketika
there
ada
was a
tawaran yang datang tentang,
invitation or an offer
yang berkaitan dengan
that
sekolah
would
atau dengan
be
pendidikan akan datang
related
ke kunci
to
gitu.
schooling,
Yang akhirnya itu berhubungan dengan akses.
the invitation
Lalu
would
juga
go to
itu
KUNCI, and this
berhubungan
is
dengan
about
bagaimana
access
kami
then. And this is also
membagikan
how
pengalaman
we
yang sudah dilakukan oleh
share
KUNCI,
the
yang sudah
knowledge and
dialami
the
oleh KUNCI
experience
kepada sekolah.
of KUNCI
Yang,
to the improper
waktu
education
itu, jadi ada
school.
dua pengalaman
So we
yang,
had this
satu aja deh, satu
experience
pengalaman tentang
about
akses,
the
global
global
dan lokal,
and
pengalaman
local
pergi
access, the
keluar,
experience
dan,
of
tarik-
going
dan hubungan
abroad,
tarik-menariknya antara
and
kunci
the
dan
tension
sekolah.
between
Jadi waktu
KUNCI
itu kami
and the
diundang
improper education
untuk,
school. So we were
ikut di
invited
pameran
to
di
join a
Bangkok.
exhibition
Waktu itu,
in Bangkok. At the time, KUNCI
merasa bahwa itu
thought
adalah
that
kesempatan
would
yang
be a
sangat
very
baik
good
untuk sekolah-sekolah
opportunity
didik
for
bisa,
improper
oh, ini
education
waktunya nih
school.
kita
This
menguji
would be the
coba
time
apakah
for
sekolah-sekolah
us to
didik
test
bisa nih
whether
ikut dalam
improper
satu
education
ajang
school
seni
would be
gitu.
able to take part in an
Terus,
art
kita
exhibition,
semangat
in an
tuh.
art event.
Akhirnya kita
We were
mencoba
very
untuk
enthusiastic, and we
membuat tim sendiri.
established our
Terus
own
kita
team. We
menentukan,
determined,
kita,
okay,
harus
we
ikut
decided
gitu.
that we had to
Tapi
go.
ternyata,
But
dalam
during the
perjalanannya,
process, there were
ada
many
banyak
frictions,
gesekan-gesekan yang itu
and we
ternyata kami
forgot
lupa bahwa
that
dalam
when we
pencapaian keberhasilan
achieve
bekerja
something
bersama
in the
dan belajar
learning
bersama,
process,
itu juga
we
harus
have
sudah selesai tentang
to
menemukan makna bersama itu sendiri
we
gitu.
have
Yang
to
ternyata itu belum ditemukan dalam
have gone to
sekolah-sekolah
a
didik
conclusion
pada saat
about
itu,
what
gitu.
it
Jadi
is,
akhirnya,
what we mean by
kehadiran kunci
learning and
sebagai
what we
kelompok
mean by
itu jadi,
togetherness. So
seolah-olah
at the time,
mendominasi lagi.
KUNCI was
Jadi akhirnya
in a way
dari,
dominating again, and from
proses
this
gesekan
friction,
itu tadi kami
we
mengambil
reflected
refleksi bahwa
back,
ternyata
and
ketika
we
membicarakan tentang,
realized that when we
kesempatan
talked about
lokal dan
the
global tadi dan tarik-menariknya,
opportunity
itu
between
juga
the
penting
global
untuk
and
melihat
local
apakah
opportunities,
itu
and we
berkaitan
had
dan
to
berhubungan dengan ketertarikan
make
peserta.
sure
Yang
that
akhirnya itu
this
kami
would be
praktekkan dalam metode kedua
relevant
ini
to the
untuk
interest
menekankan
of the
bahwa setiap
participants.
peserta
So
harus
we
memiliki ketertarikan
on
dan
this
apapun
phase
yang
we make
berhubungan
sure that
dengan
every
tawaran
participant
yang
should
datang
have the
itu,
interest, and the offer
disangkutkannya bukan kepada
should be
kelompok
given
saja, tapi
not to
melihat
the group
bagaimana
itself,
si,
but also
apakah ada
to make
ketertarikan
sure
itu di
that the
pesertanya gitu.
participants
Karena kami juga
themselves were
percaya
interested.
bahwa
because we
masing-masing
believe
individu itu
that
keberhasilan juga
the
keberhasilan
success of
kelompok
the
itu juga
group
ditentukan dari
would be
keberhasilan
determined
individu gitu.
by
Jadi
the success
masing-masing
of
individunya
each
harus
individuals.
mempunyai
So each
kebebasan
individual
dalam
should
berpikir
have
dan
a
menentukan
say
posisi.
in determining
Itu
the
yang
position
menentukan
to
bagaimana
take, and that would
kelompok sekolah salah didik ini bisa
determine
dilihat.
how the
Jadi bisa
group of
itu
the
jadi
improper
berhubungan
education
dengan
school would
tarik-menarik
be
personal
seen,
dan
would be
kelompok itu tadi
perceived.
gitu.
Satu orang lagi deh.
Just
dari
one more
waktunya sudah
person
habis.
because we are running out of time.
Boleh. Erwin.
All of
Semua
us
ini mungkin
here
punya, tempat
have a
melakukan kegiatan
place
dan
to
kondisi
practice
yang
art in
berbeda-beda.
different
Misalnya,
conditions.
Ini saya mau
I would like to
menceritakan situasi.
tell you about the
Jadi,
stories of the situation in Banggai. Do we still have time?
Sebenarnya.
Well,
Padat,
we're
padat,
actually
Anda
running out of
lanjutkan.
time,
Ya.
but you can talk. You can say this. Well, I would like to say something, and I would like to get inputs from my friends here because they're all involved in
Ini
different
ceritain aja dulu, ntar kita berbaginya
stories.
habis ini.
Well,
Habis ini
you
kita
just
makan.
tell your stories and then we can
Sambil
share
berbagi.
Di tempat
later.
saya misalnya, saya
In my place, for example, it is difficult for me to find people to collaborate with me to do art because when I ask my friends in my village to take part in art practices, it's like asking them to take part in agriculture, and they feel that it's shameful and they don't think it is meaningful. So it is a challenge for us. When I work with the local government, they think, oh, this is a project, and then there would be a red tape process, a complicated process. But it is not actually difficult for us to work with the people if the local government says, okay, let's do this. So because the people, locals, look up to the district government. So when I do the practice in the two groups of students in the different villages that are in conflict, I did this art practice, and the challenge was because this was they were sponsored by a foreign donor, and some spy came to my place spying for the government, and they say that they were spies. So it was rather scary, but so they didn't want to leave from my house, and these students were doing
Kita nggak mau pulang.
these
Kita juga nggak mau
students
pulang, nggak mau
were
selesai sekarang.
doing this art practice, and these spies were sitting there spying on us. So the only way was, well, it was quite funny. It was for my wedding, and my husband had a strong relationship with the police. And so I gave my invitation because in my invitation for my wedding, the boss, the police commissioner was mentioned because my husband was close to him. So I showed him this invitation, and then the next day the police stopped bothering us and even protecting us. So I did this quite silly things to make sure that our activities going on.
Oke. Oke.
So do you have such experiences?
Oke, nanti kita
Well,
lanjutkan.
we can continue
Nanti kita bisa
later
lanjutkan diskusi
outside
di
of the
luar
forum
ini
because
karena
we're running
waktunya
out of
sudah mepet
time.
banget, sudah,
It's okay, it's okay. You don't have to say, you don't have to apologize.
sorry ya.
It's okay.
Jadi kita
We have
harus
to close
tutup
off the
diskusi.
discussion.
Sebenarnya banyak banget.
There are
yang
so many
mesti
things that we
diomongin
have
juga
to
sih,
share
sebenarnya
and so
menarik.
many interesting things.
Farid,
Farid,
ada
do you
yang
want
mau
to say something?
disampaikan?
No?
Oke, cukup. Lalu
Bang
Bang
Agis,
mungkin sedia waktunya.
can
1
you
menit
please
menutup
close
acara
off the discussion?
diskusi kita. Silakan, Bang
Mudah-mudahan
Agis.
saya
Well,
ini
it has
kebanggaan
been
saya
a
ada
an-
metode saya
this
itu
is
ada
what
namanya
I
TV and
am
on.
proud of. So I
Jadi
have a
sebuah setting
TV and
berbentuk
on. So it's
televisi
a
begitu
method.
ya.
It looks
Orang
like a
bisa masuk
TV
di
set,
dalamnya.
and you can get
Kalau TV yang
into it.
asli,
Well, in the
orang
real
tidak bisa
television, you
masuk,
can't get
begitu.
into a television tube.
Lengkap dengan
So we have
color bar
I have this
berwarna-warni.
TV
Nah,
set,
TV itu saya ciptakan ketika
complete with the
tsunami
color
di Aceh
bars, with the
terjadi,
colors.
itu sebagai
So I
metode
use this
untuk
as a
trauma
method
healing.
post
Saya nggak tahu
tsunami
trauma healing
for
apa
trauma
waktu itu,
healing.
begitu ya.
I didn't know what
Saya
trauma
buat
healing
aja
was at the time.
televisi
I just made this television
seukuran
set,
besar,
a big
sore-sore
television
anak-anak
set,
masuk, ibu-ibu
and the
masuk,
kids
udah senang
got
semua
in,
begitu.
and then
Saya buat di
the
pinggir
mothers
laut
get in,
gitu.
and I made this
Sore-sore
on the
habis
beach.
ibu-ibu,
So in the
bapak-bapak masuk
evening,
TV,
they
mandi
got
laut
into the
semua
television
begitu.
and they play in the sea.
Kemudian metode TV and
So
on ini
this TV and Ong method
diadopsi juga oleh
was
Japan
adopted by
Foundation,
Japan
diterapkan
Foundation,
di
applied
Tokyo sana untuk
in
orang-orang tua yang
Tokyo
pensiunan
for
yang
the
tinggal di
retired
gedung-gedung
elderly
yang sudah tidak dipakai
in
lagi
old
begitu ya.
buildings,
Kemudian
in
beberapa
abandoned
seniman
buildings, and for
applied theater
some
juga menerapkannya
applied
di
theater
Bangladesh, bahkan ada
artists
yang ke
applied
Afghanistan
this
juga.
also in Bangladesh and in
Kemudian juga sekarang
Afghanistan,
jadi salah
and
satu metode
it is also
drama
one of the
untuk konflik
drama
resolusi
method
di
for
New
conflict
York,
resolutions in New
University
York
begitu.
University.
Itu saya
So
punya
I have
TV
this
namanya
TV and
on
Ong
begitu. Masih ada di
television
studio
method.
saya,
I still have that
apa namanya,
in my studio,
apa namanya itu
the
maskotnya
the
gitu ya.
mascot. So
Terima
that's
kasih, itu
just
ya dari
for
penutup
closing this discussion. Thank you. Thank you very
Terima
much
kasih
for
banyak untuk
everyone.
semuanya.
We're from
Kami dari
Ruangrupa
Ruangrupa dan
and from Goethe-Institut and documenta.
Semoga
You
obrolannya
can
masih bisa terus
continue, we can
dilanjutkan
continue
setelah
the discussion
acara ini.
after
Ini
the forum.
Anggap aja bahwa acara
Just
publik
consider
pertama
this
di
as the
sini
first
untuk
public
dokumenta. Apalagi
discussion
yang
for
oke.
documenta.
Dah.
Thank
Terima
you very
kasih.
much.